Happy Monday morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Shelley's Show and Tell. I'm Shelley Hancock, and today we have the fabulous Jane Mann back with us again, and I hope she just keeps coming again and again because she's always loaded with so much information for us. And we're going to be going over the Lift unit today. But as I do every Monday morning, we must start with my little saying, and this one comes from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I like this. Of course, I like them every Monday morning, right? Mm-hmm. It's not what happens to us, but our response to what happens to us that hurts us. Of course, things can hurt us physically or economically and can cause sorrow, but our character, our basic identity, does not have to be hurt at all. In fact, our most difficult experiences become the crucibles that forge our character and develop the internal powers, the freedom to handle difficult circumstances in the future and to inspire others to do as well. You thought back at something that in the moment just felt like, I am not going to get through this. This is going to take me out. This is changing my world. And then a few years later, you look back at it and you go, oh, that's why that happened, because I wouldn't be here now if that thing didn't happen back then. So when I was reading that this weekend, that just like really hit me. Jane, what do you say about that?
I love that. I think well, first, that's a fabulous book and it's timeless, right? It's got to be 30 years old at this point, but I absolutely agree. And I think when you get to our age, that's easy to say. When you're younger, maybe like I'm looking at Carrie, she's probably in her 20s, young 30s. That's a tough one because I think you're at the crux of your, career, and you really do feel everything hinges upon, that one thing or the one moment you wanted. But absolutely looking back. And I think what helps me is I always think of that, picture that they would hold up in a maybe self-help or some type of thing, and you could either see an old woman or a young woman, and it's really about perspective. And when things happen, I really like to dance around the issue at hand, almost in a circle. If you could just put 1 through 12 around the problem and try to look at it in 12 different perspectives and 12 different ways it could come out, versus the one that we might, through past experiences, expect it to turn out.
And don't you think it's easier as humans that we go straight to the negative, like right away? Like,
well, I think in a way we're taught that. I know when I was growing up, my dad would go, what's the worst possible case? Instead of what's the best possible case. And, I think sometimes we need to combine both that school of thought. We can't be such a Pollyanna to think that things aren't going to happen. But at the same time, I think that we can also guide it through, manifestation and really trying to change and draw the right energy of the situation to it.
Well, should we move on and talk about this fabulous? In fact, you just said this before we started. What are you thinking, Shelley? Because I know you don't like microcurrent. That's been like a little joke between you and I forever, right? And I just told you I'm addicted to this. So why do I like this so much compared to everything I've tried throughout the years?
So I don't know if there's something relevant, but I feel that so many of the tools in our industry were created by people that aren't in our industry. And so even me, I have loved microcurrent. It got me into the beauty industry. But working with 2 probes, working with heavy things, working around the face, my instructor and one of the gurus of microcurrent was in London. So when I learned microcurrent, we had the client sit up. Now, how many of you could have your client sit up in the treatment room like there? Exactly. And her argument was because of gravity. And that was one of the first things I remember, just like, well, that's out the door. My clients are never going to sit up. So, we started to work laying back. And then the next evolution came fascia, because, that was the next, kind of obstacle I saw with great success. And then the third and final was we needed to work with one hand. we're caretakers. And so we always want to place, you're taught, even in school, you always have the hand on the client somewhere. You're always reassuring them things are okay. And that's kind of your grounding energy. This tool, the lift, really came up with two things. One, the right and left probe, each are positive and negative, but this is the perfect distance apart for optimal conductivity. It's also created that it angles, so you can use 2, 4, or all 8 electrodes on the face at one time. You can use the 8 and then go up to the 2 and drag. So I really tried to make it as versatile as our fingers are when working on clients. Also, something I loved is, probes are round. And so if you had a lot of gel on it, they always kind of seem to slip unless you're really holding on. The way that the balls are, they really grip. And so we're kind of gripping inside that tissue, forcing the electricity to bypass the stratum corneum and actually get into where it can make the biggest difference in the skin.
That's so, that's so true. I really feel like I'm getting in there and I'm grabbing it differently than I've ever been able to do before on it. And I love how I can use just 2 of them.
Yep.
Here, and I'm still conducting versus a lot of pieces of equipment. You have to have everything touching. No. So my girls down at the spa, I've been telling them, get creative, play around, because I don't think there's a real wrong here. Am I wrong about that? But
no, thank you. It's so funny because people go, well, am I doing it right? And I'm like, you can't screw this up. You really can't. It's much easier than I think we're built in. There's got to be a caveat here that's going to make this not work. It's as simple as placing it on your face. And that's the beauty of it. And it works, we're really working. We haven't quite made the attachment for it to work with biotherapeutic, but that's definitely into the cards. But so far, the new cords I have coming for Beautiful Image, it was a game changer. I took it to Ray Baker, the developer, and Ray is close to in his 90s. He doesn't want to like anything new, and he came back with the biggest smile on his face. He goes, "This is amazing. This is stronger than any of my probes." He's like, "This is a game changer." So I think as estheticians, don't make it so difficult. It's you have a positive, you have a negative, and any type of microcurrent, it always is required that both of the positive and the negative are hitting the skin at the same time. And this is because the positive emits a hydrogen, the negative emits a hydroxyl, and these two are drawn together. This is what pulls it through the skin cell into the mitochondria to create that extra ATP, because that hydrogen floating around is used in that ATP turbine that creates more ATP in the skin. The same scenario is with the muscle. When you change the program on the machine, it's not anything that you do with the probe. It's the machine you're using. That frequency or waveform is going to have a deeper amplitude to reach the muscle now. So typically there's a different waveform and there's more force. Now we're going through the sarcomeres of the muscle fibers, and this is adding ATP to the muscle to maintain that toned appearance. We're never really lifting muscle. People think, oh, we're lifting, but it's a tone. We're toning and plumping and giving that muscle the vibrancy of what we had when we were younger in our 30s.
Jane, I love that you've made this handheld unit to go with other machines out there, but for the estheticians that don't have anything yet, you have your own base.
Yes.
And it's just, for me, I love it because it's just so reasonably priced. So if an esthetician's just starting out and she needs something highly effective, she's not going to have to break her piggy bank. So I was using this before at first with another little handheld unit that I had. Then you got me this, and I just absolutely love it. So we've got 2 programs in this. Can you kind of explain those to us?
Absolutely. So there's program 1 and program 2. Each of those programs have 4 programs inside them. And I'm so excited. There's so many things I just want to spit out because I'm so excited, but I'll go in order. So the kind of the overview is in these same programs, I not copied because you can't like copy the exact frequency, but I copied the idea of LED. Now, LED is light, it's photons, right? Microcurrent is electrons. Photons respond to the chromophore or the chromophore in the mitochondria. Electrons work with kind of the ATP cycle. But either way, cells don't like to be blasted all the time. There always needs to be a little bit of a break. So probably even in your LED machines, so you might not see it to the naked eye, but there's always going to be a little bit of a flutter or a pulse, because it's like, and we said this analogy earlier, it's like if I were talking to you guys, but instead I was at an elevated pitch and I was just screaming at you, kind of like that John Candy in Saturday Night Live when he's a motivator. And like, you're going to get the message, but maybe not receive it as gently as if I'm talking in your tone where you're listening, right? You receive this. In microcurrent and LED is very similar. We're working with cells, and cells can get too much energy. When this happens, they shut down. They just can't take too much. So I chose a very low UA, and I did this for two reasons. One, I can't stand a lot of conductive gel. It dries up, and that's just another thing. And we can't create a conductive gel that stays emollient, because so much of it is, one, you've got the electricity drying out the conductive gel. Two, you've got a dehydrated client absorbing the conductive gel. So if we can get the skin hydrated enough, this is a low enough UA that if it gets dry, you're not stinging and zapping them, because microcurrent isn't something you should feel. And that's where we got off track. Everybody feels like if their client doesn't feel it, or they're not, in discomfort, it's not working. But microcurrent's quite the opposite, because what we're doing is we're kind of cheerleaders to the cells. We're like, okay, get your act together. You can do this. I'm going to give you the energy, and you're going to carry out the protein synthesis, and you're going to carry out the metabolism, and you're going to carry out, the production of whatever needs to be to make this a healthy cell. So that's in program 1 and 2. So the unit itself is very, very, very gentle, but don't let that fool you, because when you're using it, you'll go over and you will see little, sometimes twitches in the face. And it's not because it's too strong. It's just you're going over a nerve, and it's just kind of moving the face. The second thing is that I have it just kind of blending enough of the program. So don't get fixated on, did I do all the programs on one side of the face? Everything is always different. So it's kind of running in a circle. So you might stop, and then it picks up, on that program again, and kind of continues on. Program 2 is muscle. Same idea. There are 4 programs within that program too. But here's the exciting part is this unit is upgradable. So I am always playing around with different ideas, but if I came up with something that I really felt was better, you can send it in, and it can be upgraded for a nominal fee, not a lot. So that's something that I just think is so cool.
So Jane, what is the recommended time to go through these 4 phases within one program? What is that amount of time?
So typically program 1 is geared for, let's say, skin. And if you've taken my class, it's really for fascia. And so we kind of just talked about those pads. And so you'll get these pads when you take a class that you anchor under your client and you anchor on yourself. And now you're able to really do a face massage with microcurrent running through your fingertips. I use this cleansing. I use this really with anything, because I just want microcurrent increases hydration in the skin. And hydration is needed for successful microcurrent. So anything we can do beforehand, whether it's an anma or it's, a microcurrent massage, we're increasing hydration in the skin. Electricity travels at the path of least resistance. And so the more hydrated tissue is, the more we can get it through. So jumping in, just to kind of explain fascia is, let's say that you have a bunch of fascial adhesions, maybe in the masseter, right? So let's consider that here's this fiber optic network of fascia. And when it becomes congested, it's kind of like it becomes dense. So now electricity trying to go through, it's going to just kind of stop there, and it's going to divert somewhere else, because the electrons just are going to take the path of least resistance. When we can warm up that tissue, now the current continues to go through that hydrated fascia.
That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. But still, how long is that period of time? Or is it not really?
It's
Real
really,
relevant.
I mean, it depends what you have. Personally, I do about 20 minutes to 30 minutes massage. I do 20 to 30 minutes with the lift, because the longer, the more you prep, the quicker the lift.
Okay,
Now,
so 20 minutes
lifting,
full face, 20 minutes full face, so 10 on
I'd say
10.
40 minutes full face, 20 and
Wow,
20
you're
on
good,
program
girl.
1, 20 on program 2.
Wow. Okay.
And that's the thing, is I think we get so caught up in, like, I know girls are doing an hour and a half. You shouldn't need to do an hour and a half.
No.
If the tissue is really dehydrated, that's going to be a little bit different. But, one of the questions on microcurrent and aesthetics was, should I do LED before or after? Let's just say you want to start with LED first, right? Maybe put on a kind of a mask that you like, that's conducive with light and works. Now you're kind of waking up that mitochondria, you're waking up the chromophore, you've got the mask with the hydration, and then you can go in and start microcurrent. You've just kind of now sped up your ability to get those electrons to pass the stratum corneum.
So would it be beneficial, Jane, because our Illuminate LED is only a 5-minute treatment time. Would it be beneficial to start with 5 minutes, do our microcurrent, and then top it off with another 3, 4, 5 minutes of LED?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's really enjoyable for the client.
Yeah. Yeah. The other day I took your Anma. I was a client that I've done for a very long time. And I did the same routine I've always done on her, except that after I cleansed and exfoliated, I did the Anma for maybe 5 minutes at the most over the whole face. I noticed a boost at her end results when she left that. It's like, your clients' faces, you see them so much. Then I looked down and I went, I'll be darned. Like, there was a boost in her results just from adding this in there.
It is. Again, and as time goes on, we're really going to see what fascia plays in our industry. And it's a hard concept for estheticians to swallow right now, because we're not trained in the connective tissue. We're only trained on the top of the skin. But when we're dealing with microcurrent, we have to start looking at this connective tissue wonder, fascia. And just by doing something as simple as the Anma, we're releasing the lymph. So she's getting the lymphatic drainage, where we're releasing the congestion. Daily fascia lays down its fascia dust. And if it's left without moving, it builds and piles up to be something thick and dense. And so just doing that over your client is kind of like a wake-up call to the cells receiving the products that you use in the treatment room.
Well, Jane, I can tell you, you have gotten me addicted to this. There's been so many times you and I have been on Zoom together and you're sitting there.
I know. I do it in the car.
Every single night while I watch TV, I'm like this, I'm on my arms, I'm on my legs. And I have to tell you, on my legs specifically, I notice a different texture to the skin on my legs from doing this. I'm getting blood flowing, right? And it's not only the visual, but the whole feel to them is different. Like they feel hydrated without putting cream on them.
Exactly right. Again, it's releasing the body's own hyaluronic acid. So, you do the Anma, it's almost like filler in some cases. It is so great. And I can't say, keep doing it in the scalp. Even my hairdresser was like, your hair is getting really healthy. And it's just that I started to use it more in my scalp, as well as the blood flow. I keep saying microcirculation depletes as we get older. and that's nourishment to our skin and our tissues. And so over time, it's just the consistency is where you start to notice. I love that you're starting to see it on your and stuff.
Absolutely love it. What I like to call my estheticians out there is, using this a little bit in treatment with the client. And you go on to the lift with them, but you're explaining why and how they need to be using this at home. And then this becomes an instant retail item for you. Instant.
And I have to tell you, other than if they've dropped it in the shower, I've never had a return on the Anma. It is a consistent sell. And I think as an esthetician, if you're able to explain to your client, because again, this is an educational process for the esthetician, but the sooner you start educating your client now on fascia and how to use the tool and the benefits and the youth of fascia, young face, you'll be ahead of the game, and you're going to build trust with your clients as well.
Love it. Jane, will you come on again sometime
Always.
soon?
I love being on your show.
You. Everyone, thank you for taking your Monday morning with us. We really, truly, truly appreciate it. Go out and make it a great day. See you next week.